set the stage. Oh, there he is. I think he's back now. Johnny Mac, are you with me?
I can hear you. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
I got you now, brother. I got you now. How you doing on this Monday morning?
Well, yeah, going well. About 16 inches of snow here in South Jersey, so I got to deal with that. Now I got to deal with some microphone issues. So, but we'll get through it.
We'll get through it, John. It's all piling up on you. Let's hope tanks through that snow today. That's 16 inches for you, John. Big week today, man. Our big week starts this week. Really getting closer to that new league year, John, where the tables turn, the calendars turn in the NFL, and you start to lock in on the next football season. The combine kicks off this week. How you doing on this Monday, John, when it comes to Eagles, NFL, and what is ahead for this football team?
Yeah, I think this is a big week. I think I've said it pretty consistently about last week and since about 10 days out. That I think it's a really big week in the NFL, but I don't think it's a really big week because of what people perceive it to be a big week. And what by that I mean, the combine. Obviously, you're going to see all the prospects for the draft workout and all that kind of stuff, and that's the public setting, but the more important is the behind the scenes stuff. Number one, for the draft, it's the health checks and that kind of stuff for teams. And two, it's sort of like a convention for executives and agents to sort of lay the foundation for what's coming in free agency, which starts on March 11th from a fan perspective with the legal negotiation period. So this is sort of where it all gets started. So all that stuff you heard about, well, the Eagles aren't talking about trades for A.J. Brown or trades for this or trading for someone else. You don't talk about trades at that time of the year. This is when sort of it starts. Not to say that they're going to trade A.J., but you get my point. So
right. This is where the seed would be
exactly
watered,
and certainly the Eagles are gonna get calls about people trying to acquire A.J. Brown. And Howie's always very upfront about that kind of stuff. He listens to everything. He checks in on everything. So he wouldn't be doing his job if he didn't pick up those phone calls. So I think that mentality of, that just doesn't exist in the NFL. You talk about everybody. And I said, that's what Joe Sheen showed them being on Hard Knocks. That's why GMs don't want to be on Hard Knocks, because they don't want fans they don't want fans seeing some of these conversations they do have. So all of that stuff will start in Indy. And so, yeah, I think it's a very big week. And then the second thing, sort of getting ready for this hellscape that we're on. It's like here in South Jersey, we live on the dark side of the moon, but, texting with some people around the league, this is not really a highly regarded free agent class, I think, as a whole. So I think if you want to get better, you might have to do some inventive things, trades, things like that, maybe things out of the box that you're not thinking about. And certainly from the Eagles' perspective, they don't have a ton of cap space to work with. And
I didn't think they were going to be big players, John, in free agency, but it is still worth noting, obviously, the class.
No, and the class is not really that good as a whole. And that's why you see somebody like Jaelan Phillips potentially getting overpaid. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident that that's the Eagles' number one priority going into free agency, to get him back. But they'll have a walk away number, as they typically do. And there's a lot. We talked a lot about valuation, and some of these valuations, like with Jaelan Phillips, the 17, 18. I'm like, boy, I just don't think that's right. And we're going to see.
You're going to be right, especially with the class not being all that, and it kind of I mean, I know we've talked about it to some extent already, the class, but we haven't really heard of that many big names. So it doesn't surprise me that the thinking around the league right now is that the class is not all that good.
No, yeah, I mean, and again, that can change when as the teams who are in salary cap issues,
right? They cut some people.
They have to cut some people, yeah, and again, you have trades. Max Crosby, is not a free agent, for instance, but would take a trade to get him. So, I mean, you can go into, and that's why I say outside the box. There's not a lot of top tier free agents, and that's why I think I saw on the ESPN one they did or it might have been Popper from the Athletic. He was number 3. So of the guys who are going to hit the market, he's top tier, and generally that happens. It happened with Milton Williams last year. I know that I know the Eagles kind of felt like he would get somewhere around 20 million. All of a sudden, you wake up and he's got 26 million. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
it makes you feel better when you get these things wrong, because even the teams get, they're like, they don't know. They do their best educated guess, but it's supply and demand. I mean, you want a defensive tackle like Milton Williams. There aren't a lot of defensive tackles, and you got to go above and beyond.
You got to pay $5 million above a market value.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Carolina gets into it, and they're at 23, and then everybody says the deal is done, and here comes New England, and they give them more money. That's sort of the exact definition of supply and demand.
And I think we have a couple of people who are ripe for that. I think Jaelan Phillips, obviously being number 1. John, we're going to see what happens with that, man. It should be a good start to all of that talk, as John just insinuated, with the combine kicking off. I believe some people have already checked in to Indy. I don't know if it was deep. I think I saw defensive linemen and linebackers and kickers. So they do John, what do they start with down there? You always say the most important things that come from the combine are actually things that don't get reported because, there's protection, I guess, on it and stuff, but it's the medical exams and stuff and the interviews, I would think is what it is. But just elaborate on that, John, for the people.
Well, yeah, the interviews, I don't even think, because that's changed as well, too. So you get a very finite amount of time. So when you see, and you'll see a bunch of guys, the Eagles talk to this guy, the Eagles talk to, well, the Eagles talk to every guy. So, yeah. I mean, that's not necessarily indicative of that much. But yeah, the health stuff, the on-field stuff doesn't start till Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, Thursday.
With defensive linemen and linebackers. I think the kickers as well, which will be exciting for people. So that kind of stuff so you're doing the measurements first. And the health checks, which obviously we don't get information on, is of course the most important information that we need. But the teams do, and that's why it's so important from their perspective. And then, as I said, the mini convention aspect, the competition committee already met. They had a press conference, I guess, yesterday, talking about things. Interesting. I get there's no real push. Rich McVay said there's no real push to get the Tush push out of the game anymore. And I get a lot of Eagles fans are clapping back with that. I'm like, oh, nobody cares about the safety of the Tush push anymore, which was all bullshit, as we said. Yeah, they were, they just, however, maybe they should be, because I think in hindsight, you got a crippled center and a crippled left guard. Maybe you should care.
Yeah, agreed, John.
And that's from the Eagles' perspective. And hopefully I'm exaggerating. Obviously, Kam Jurgens is hopefully going to be fine after stem cell treatment.
The point still stands. The point still stands for sure.
And Landon's going to be back, but obviously wasn't that steady. But clearly that had an impact. You guys have to see that.
Well, Jason Kelsey told everybody that. I mean, he said on WIP, a little bit ago, or I forget when. Took years off my life, and you see it now with obviously the two guys who were the crux of that Tush push, really banged up. So we'll see. I did think that was pretty funny though, John. Now it's like, the Eagles weren't able to use it effectively. Now nobody cares about banning.
Yeah, well, nobody cares now. That part of it's real. I mean, they weren't trying to ban it because the Eagles were good at it, but that's sort of when they became sort of not good at it, it became like, all right, well, who cares? They're not going to run it anyway. That type of thing. And maybe they bring it back. Although like I said, the health the health aspect of it is, even though people doesn't think it's real, it seems very real for the Philadelphia Eagles. Even though they may not have known it at the time, they certainly didn't know it at the time. But I think in hindsight, you can look at it and say, yeah, I mean, that impacted Kam and Landon specifically.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. The thing I like about the evolution of that conversation, actually, John, I don't know if you agree, is sometimes I feel like the NFL will work it out, like it's by itself, and the play never got banned. And ultimately, the Eagles aren't effective at it, or as effective at it anymore, without any legislation, without any rules, without any changes. So, it's a tough play. It worked when it worked, and the Eagles are paying the price for it, and other teams are not. So I think the NFL kind of worked it out by themselves. I always thought that was going to happen with the play. I never thought it was going to be this long reign of dominance that never got fixed unless the NFL stepped in. So I'm kind of happy that it's not getting addressed. But I do think you're right about the health point. It's got to be forefront with that conversation. I think that play should be retired regardless of what the league does.
Yeah, I don't, from the standpoint of look, when I think removing it was about the ugliness of the play and the false starts and the
Right.
not calling it properly, not seeing what's going on.
Like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, like you can go back to the Wildcat. I mean, people with the Wildcat were like, well, how do we stop it? What do we do? And they figured it out, and that kind of stuff evolves. Even the RPOs, they kind of figured it out a little bit. Although, they also at a point of emphasis did not call it like college, as I said, and really be strict about, all right, you're only allowed a yard down the field. And that sort of limited the RPO game. So now it's more manageable. So I mean, there's a give and take from that standpoint. Look, I've said when they took it out of the game, when you were for longtime football fans, and I'm aging myself, pushing was illegal for far longer than it was legal. And they took it out because this will ring familiar. It was too hard to officiate. And they took it out, and they didn't envision there's always unintended consequences for these types of things. I've always said, pushing shouldn't be allowed. It just shouldn't be allowed anywhere on the field, downfield. It shouldn't be allowed. Too much of an advantage for an offense. I tend to be a defensive guy, but defenses are better than offenses now. So that's why I love. Yeah. That's why I love defensive guys, because they, no matter what you throw at them, the good ones figure out a way to stop it. And you saw that. I think you saw that in the NFL last year. But again, if you're talking about just the aesthetics of the game, the Flores like havoc guys are the guys who are stopping things, and that's kind of ugly football, because that's like your hair's on fire. Bust up the play. Get one negative play and you're off the field. That's not, Bill Walsh, beautiful football with just kind of ugly football. So that's kind of the reaction to it. I have a ton of respect for those guys to figure that out, but it's not aesthetic, I would say.
Right. No, I agree. I agree completely. John, with the combine kicking off, a couple things we got to get to. Little pieces of news here in Eagle Land that we will get to. You kind of hit them with the tush push and the combine coming out. What's the number one thing, John, or the top couple of things that Eagle fans should look to take away from the NFL Combine this week? As it kicks off, and really feels like the start of the new league year. I know that doesn't kick off until I think it's March 11th. It kicks off in the legal negotiating period, as we call it here on Birds 365, widely known as the legal tampering period, starts, I believe, March 9th. March 9th, is it? Is it March 9th? Let me double check.
No, March 11th.
March 11th. That's right. My I thought that. Yeah, March 11th, and then March 13th.
Then you can officially sign people on March 13th.
No, it says online here March 11th is the free agency, and March 9th is the legal.
Oh, really? I could be.
Yeah, I mix them up too. I keep going back, but that's what it says. I'll double check it to get all confirmation for you guys. But March 9th right now, noon Eastern, legal negotiating, legal tampering begins. March 11th, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2016 or 2026 new league year begins. That's kind of the rundown on that. John.
Yeah, a little bit earlier. All right. I got to readjust my calculation there. Yeah, that's better. Earlier the better, as far
There
as
you
I'm
go.
concerned.
What's the top thing that, John, the Eagles fans should look to take away from the combine kicking off?
Yeah, like I said, free agency first. Even though it's ironic because it's under the guise of a
Of the
draft sort of thing, but the foundation of free agency is sort of laid out there, and that includes trades and everything else. So when we bring in 1A and 1B, whether you want to say is AJ, figuring out what you're going to do with AJ, and then Jaelan Phillips, those to me are the 1A and 1B. And before the Eagles get started with the rest of the offseason plan, they have to figure out, are they going to have AJ back? Are they going to have Jaelan Phillips back? And then you could move forward. If you don't have those guys, that completely changes your offseason. Completely changes, because now you got to get a meaningful contributor at wide receiver, a meaningful contributor at edge rusher. And I mean meaningful. And that totally shifts gears. So in-house first before you even start thinking about out-of-house.
And the two in-house moves, those are big moves. We just talked about the potential for Jaelan Phillips to get a much inflated deal because of maybe the weakness in the free agency market. We'll keep an eye on that. And then when it comes to A.J. Brown, John, I think there's this thought process, John, that the Eagles know whether they're trading him or if they don't. And part of me, one, I don't know if that's true or not. But two, my belief is that the Eagles don't know, just like we don't know. And that's not to say that they're not thinking about it, but they might think right now on February 23rd, well, we want to keep A.J. Brown. And then the right offer might come. A.J. Brown's agent might say something, whatever the case might be, and the Eagles look to take the best deal. The Eagles are keeping A.J. Brown, Zander. What are you talking about? And I'm like, well, they might think that right now. I don't know if they're actually going to end up keeping them, depending on what they're offered on the market. So I think it all goes in, and we will see kind of what happens with that, Johnny Mac.
Well, that's why you pick up the phone. I mean, that's why you don't say, no, so-and-so's off limits, so-and-so's off. There's very few players that are completely off limits. Very few. Because somebody might bowl you over. So, I mean, it does no good to say, I'm not going to talk about this. You're not doing your job. So, that's why Howie has become Howie, the due diligence part of it. So, and there's going to be people calling because, as I said, the rest of the league thinks he's going to be traded for the most part. Certainly a large portion of people certainly think he's going to be traded. So that means people are going to pick up the phone and say, hey, what will it take to get A.J. Brown? And if it's good, to your point, if it's so good, I look, I've said pretty consistently, if there were no cap issues, they're trading A.J. Brown. So that's where I'm working from. And what I mean by that is they're tired of all the stuff. They're tired of it. So if there weren't other restrictions, they're trading them, no doubt about it. But there's significant restrictions and there's significant salary cap issues to deal with. So the best case scenario would be to talk him into Sean Mannion as, the natural, basically the next great offensive mind, and everything's going to change and everything's going to be copacetic. But ultimately, this, to me, when you're a player, and again, the Mike Tomlin quote I love, we want volunteers, we don't want hostages. If you're a player and you don't want to be here, the Eagles have done it in the past where certain guys haven't wanted to be here and they say, all right, well, we don't want that around the organization. So we're going to go in a different direction, most notably Carson Wentz. So, I think a lot of it's up to AJ. And if AJ really wants out, they're probably going to move him.
You know, John, there's the comment you just made about the Eagles would move him if there wasn't cap. I agree with you. My pushback is not on that at all. I agree with that point. You know, my question for you is, would they be right? You know, because sometimes in things you want things, right? Or you want something, or you believe something is the best, but might be better to suffer through it. You know, you can't always get what you want. And it might be better to suffer through it, or you might do yourself a bigger disservice, you know, by submitting to what you want. So the Eagles are tired of A.J. Brown, and they think, you know, the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. Well, my question for you is, would they be right about that, John? Because that's not an easy player to replace. And they might not like the antics or some of the stuff, and I'm, you know, that's fine. They're entitled to think that or want to move on from it because of that. But would they be right? You know, that's a tough thing for me to thread the needle on.
Well, I look, if a player doesn't want to be here, now I think they're right. I use that Tomlin quote not because I like it for, you know, for being clever. I think it's true.
Right.
You don't want people who don't want to be in a situation. That's not to say you can replace them from a talent standpoint, because I don't think you can. Certainly not short term, probably not long term. This is one of the best players I think the build-up Eagles have ever had. I'm not shy about that. I'm an AJ Brown guy from a talent perspective. They're not replacing him, but I do think people don't understand you can win different ways. Like they won having this big time receiver along with Devontae Smith. You know, but they also won Super Bowl 52, and look at that group. You know, Alshon's a good player, he's not AJ.
Right.
You know, there are different ways to win. So you would have to add some competency at wide receiver. You're not going to all of a sudden Devontae Smith bumps up. I know there's people in that building who believe Devontae Smith can be a wide receiver one in this league. And all of a sudden he bumps up, like what happened with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba in Seattle when DK left. Like DK was number one. He leaves, and look at what happens to JSN. I'm not saying that's going to happen to that level with Devontae, but there are different ways you go about things. And now what Howie will also say is, you know, we don't like giving away good players, which is also true. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to discuss, but just because you can't play the same way with the same style of receivers doesn't mean you can't win a different way. And by and large, the Eagles have already signaled they're going to try to win a different way anyway, with the new offense and changing schemes and changing concepts and changing philosophies. So maybe this is the time to do it from that perspective, because you're changing anyway.
Fair thought process there. John, where's the JMac scale on the JMac meter on AJ Brown? You've been teetering between 48 and 52. One way, another way. It's like a seesaw right now at the park when you were a kid. Where is it today, JMac?
The seesaw has come down. Maybe it's the snow. 52-48. I'm going to go 53-47 gone.
Oh, we're going up on the gone meter?
Yeah. We're going
oh man, this snow better melt quick, because that thing could be astronomically going up. We'll see. All right, John. So 53-47. I like it. Your first break from the 52-48. And it's toward AJ being gone, 53-47. Great opening segment there in to start